What's up YouTube, Dylan here with another backhoe repair video. This week's episode will be welding on a new cutting edge. The front of our bucket is a little bit mangled and it's missing about 1 inch of material where the cutting edge bolts onto. The cutting edge from New Holland is like $450, so we opted to buy a cheap one online and weld it on instead of bolting it on. It was also really pricey to find a single cutting edge that was 7.5 feet wide like the bucket, so we bought two 60-inch cutting edges. The factory cutting edge is also 8 inches wide. We opted for a 6-inch wide one to save some more money. The cutting edges we bought came with this super thick industrial yellow paint on there, which unfortunately we had to grind off so that we could weld it. We used a pair of C-clamps to hold it in place and then measured off of the inside lip of the bucket and went for about 1.5 inches to 2 inches of stick out in the front. Before getting too carried away welding, we went ahead and tried to drill a hole through it to see how difficult it would be to just bolt the new cutting edge on versus welding it on. After spending about an hour drilling a single hole in the cutting edge, we gave up on that idea and went back to welding. If you have a drill press or a magnetic drill, it's probably not too bad, but using a hand electric drill was a nightmare. The front edge of our bucket is worn down, so it's not flat on the bottom. In order to get it flat enough, I use a jack and a 4x4 post to push the back up tight to the bottom. It's definitely still not perfect, but it's going to be a lot better than wearing out the bucket. With that post in place, the back of the cutting edge is nice and tight up against the bottom of the bucket. So I'll move across it and weld it in strips. I added a nut to the top of the 4x4 so that I could direct where I was putting the force a little bit better. I'm clearly not a very good welder, but at this point the backside is attached. The front of our bucket has a bit of a curl, so we just used a hammer to smack it back down. Then we grabbed a grinder and just cleaned up that edge so that we can weld it. Now it's time to add the second half, add a mark and cut it to length. I stripped the paint off the second half using a grinding wheel, and then I clamped it on, measured it to make sure it was in the right place, and then used the jack to push the rear up tight. I switched rods part of the way through, and I was having a hell of a time getting these ones to spark up. I'm not sure if I had not enough power, too much power, or if the rods were just old and had moisture in them. Because this bucket has been run with no cutting edge for many years, the bottom metal is rounded over. We opted to fill the hole instead of welding the hole with a piece of flat bar. Once that piece of filler metal was pounded in as deep as it would go, we started by welding it to the cutting edge and then the bucket to that new plate. The camera died, so we missed a shot here, but I welded the plate onto the cutting edge, and now I'm welding the bucket to that plate. The bottom of the bucket is rounded over, so I run a few passes over top of each other to build up some thickness and fill in the gap. I ran a few more passes down at the end. We somehow missed that shot, and then I used an angle grinder to cut off that chunk of bar that stuck out past the end of the bucket. Then we fired up the machine and dumped the bucket so we could clean up these welds on the back of it. The last thing we welded were the sides of the bucket, where we put the cutting edge on and then the steel plate in the middle. There's kind of a goofy missing triangle, so I just wanted to fill that in. And here's the finished product. We ended up with a stitch weld in the back and a stitch weld in the front. We didn't think we needed to fully weld the thing in there for it to stay on, and also if we have to cut it back out and replace it later, it'll be that much easier if it's not fully welded. That's all for this video, so we'll see you next time our equipment breaks.
I was like, he had to have lifted it.
I had loosened it earlier.